Welcome to another episode of podcast series where we explore the evolving world of medical affairs and other pharma functions with digital data and the power of AI in today's world. My name is Sanjeev Welling, CEO and co-founder of Avira Digital, a digital transformation company specializing in reimagining the entire medical affairs and other pharma functions with integrated solutions powered by Gen AI. Through this series, I get to talk to some of the most inspiring leaders in the pharma industry and see how technology, data, innovations, AI is changing the way we work and deliver impact. Today, I'm with Tanisha Hill, a truly inspiring leader with over 20 years of experience in the pharma industry. Currently, she is a head of digital strategy and innovation at Teva Pharmaceutical and also founder, president, and CEO of Digital Health for Equitable Health Alliance, dedicated to health equity through digital solutions. So in this episode, we'll talk about the personal journey, her point of view on medical affairs and other functions, how digital data and AI are influencing the way industry operates today. Tanisha, it is pleasure to have you here and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited that you think I'm an inspiring leader, so I appreciate that. Just a little bit about me. I work for a pharmaceutical company. I've been doing this in digital health for a very long time. All the views, of course, today that I share are going to be my own views. They're not views of the company that I work for, which is Teva Pharmaceuticals. And I have started a nonprofit that focuses on using digital technologies to help bridge the gap in health equity. And you're not aware of this yet, but I recently launched another company. It's called Curate Health. And the whole idea is to help life science companies and digital startups move from just an idea to actually access. So that includes getting in front of market access, regulatory considerations, and of course, health equity to make sure that everyone has the option to get there and to use these types of technologies. So I'm so passionate about this space, Sanjeev. I think digital is one of the key areas that we have in healthcare to really transform the way healthcare is delivered. So thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you. You're absolutely right. Over the past several years, we have seen a huge shift on pharmaceutical industry and about evidence management, not generating just evidences, but ensuring the decision across the organization. And Tanisha, the volume, the variety, the velocity of the data is growing faster than ever, bringing evidence to life in the way we inform both commercial strategies, medical affairs strategies, initiatives across these challenges, many teams, right? It is no longer about having data, but it's integrating it seamlessly, interpreting it correctly, activating it at the right moment to create real impact to the patient, provider, payers, and overall health ecosystem. So with that in mind, I would love to hear your perspective on how evidence generation have become a very increasingly complex environment and how pharma can improve the way evidence is integrated and activated across different functions. Would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, big data is growing, right? It's bigger than ever and continues to get big in a number of ways. In terms of the variables that can be collected, the amount of information that can be collected is growing exponentially because of digital, right? Because now in clinical trials, for example, there are many tools that provide digital collection of vital signs, of patient-reported outcomes in ways that we didn't have when I started doing clinical research back in 2004. And so it's allowed us to have a much greater volume of data. But in addition to that, more people are collecting data, more organizations are collecting data, and pharma's collecting data as well across the organization. So we're not just looking at data in terms of what's collected directly from the patient, but there's also opportunities to collect data in ways like social listening to really hear the patient voice. And I'll talk more about that later on. But the data is definitely evolving. And so I know folks now are doing more like working towards getting data lakes to help with evidence generation, because now you can generate secondary ideas and your evidence generation doesn't always have to be hypothesis generating. It can actually be secondary in nature where you're learning and that those learnings actually inform your hypothesis generating research. And I do know that the FDA is also looking at ways of collecting data, especially patient reported outcomes, and also being very digital. One of the great things that I have had the opportunity to experience while working at Teva is that we launched a fully integrated digital product. And so it allowed me to work much more directly and understand what the FDA would be looking for. So I'm excited that all of healthcare is really interested, for the most part, in being digital. I think some of the challenges, of course, with big data, you have noise and how do you manage that. But the data is there for both commercial as well as medical affairs to really benefit all sides of the company, including research and development, can really benefit now from having this information available to them that we didn't have before now.
True. So you talked about clinical trials and data and pharma companies, but the last 18 months, we have seen AI been the buzzword in pharma. And the teams have moved from experimental pilots into real practical applications now, from accelerating the clinical trials to real world evidence analysis to even social listening. And that's becoming part of your overall data sets to deal with, and even shaping how we are engaged with different stakeholders. The possibilities are endless.
Right.
But at the same time, there's a lot of noise in this space of AI. It has been tricky to separate what is really adding value and what will still promise than just to practice. Given your perspective, your hands on experience in digital strategy, and now with AI, I'm just curious, what do you think about AI is starting to make waves in pharma? And what's your perspective on what kind of AI applications will actually make an impact?
So, great question. And it feeds back into what I was just mentioning in terms of the big data, right? So now we do have to apply AI because we are getting big data everywhere. And the way that we're starting off is mostly around, I'd say, pattern recognition synthesis. And I think that's a more lower hanging fruit for pharma. Take this big data, apply these AI approaches, looking for pattern recognition. I think where pharma is evolving in this space is now really becoming more predictive, looking at using predictive analytics to inform evidence generation. I've even seen folks using it in relationship to understanding epidemiology of populations when we're generating evidence. So I think we're moving rather slowly from a place of pattern recognition to really incorporating some of the more complexities of AI. I think pharma is also using AI to move towards truly gathering and understanding insights. So we have folks who are out there on the field, and like your MSLs or the folks who connect value outcomes, folks who connect with managed care, really starting to collect those insights and apply AI to those. Because again, it could be very noisy, right? Everyone has a different perspective, but being able to use these new tools, I think, is becoming more and more prolific. I also think that we're becoming more used to it. I think there's still a lot of learning that we have to achieve. There's governance, for example, that we are starting to really consider. And a lot of pharma companies are global in nature. So we also have to consider global considerations, right? They may be able to be more decentralized and use federated models, for example, as you move from one data set to another. There's country differences that you have to consider. So I think we're learning. We're definitely going from more of your applying AI to your contact, to your CRM, to understanding what insights are out there, to really evolving into using AI across the business. So that's where we're going.
You've been the head of digital strategy and innovation. One of the recurring themes I hear from the pharma leaders is
Mhm.
technology itself is rarely a hardest part of digital transformation. It is about integrating the platform. It is about integrating the data sets. You talked about global governance, different regions you talked about, right? They have their own system, the processes, the compliance requirements, functions like commercial, medical, market access, you name it, right? Looking at same problem, but with very different angles. Result can be data silos, duplication of efforts, missed opportunities for synergies. And from your experience, I would like to know when it comes down to platform integration, especially around the data, what are the biggest barriers you have faced in aligning the stakeholder across the regions and the functions?
So I'm going to start big picture and then I'll narrow down. So I think in the industry, the biggest challenge is really around digital transformation, right? Not putting the product first, not putting the solution first. And I think when it comes to digital transformation, it's easy to do that. You find this really great software or tool that you might think can manage a problem. And so you bring it into the system and try to work the system around the tool, as opposed to the other way around, where you're actually looking for the issue and finding the right system to address the issue. So data transformation is a challenge. That's number one. Number two is around tech maturity. Some of these tools are still new and not necessarily applied. And so integration within the system and the maturity of these tools still need to be seriously evaluated. And then three, I think one of the great things about this space is that now pharma and other industries can partner. I've had the opportunity to partner with, for example, large managed care organizations and figuring out, okay, how can we connect? We're all out for the greater good. We want to make sure we're helping healthcare providers do the best for their patients, and we want to do the best by patients. So how can we partner? And some of the challenges we find are, again, governance, right? Because it's all still very new. Who owns the data? Who gets to use the data? What data are we going to pull in? So governance is a challenge. Data ownership is a challenge. Interoperability, even though the tech is there, interoperability is still a challenge because not all data connects, can't always link it all together. Systems are not always connecting. API is great. So you have these protocols that everyone has access to, but interoperability can sometimes be a significant challenge. And then privacy. Pharma, we're very particular about making sure we're following laws, we're making sure that we're protecting patients' information if we get access to it at all. Because for the most part, most of what we do is anonymized. And so those are just the key points, right? Maturity, data transformation, really understanding privacy and governance, I think.
Fantastic. No, absolutely. One more question I have around medical affairs. As you've been in the industry for 20 plus years, medical affairs in the recent years is no longer just a support function. It is often referred to be the third pillar along the side of commercial and R&D, right? It's becoming like a center for shaping the scientific narratives, engaging stakeholders, driving evidence based strategies. So, digital tools, data platforms, AI has opened up entirely new ways medical affairs can generate insights, share knowledge, collaborate internally or externally. So, from your perspective, what role do you think digital is playing in unlocking its full potential?
To your point, medical affairs has truly evolved from being more of a supportive function to very strategic. So I think that's another reason why folks are considering where I sit in medical affairs, which I love that space that I work in, to be a third pillar, because medical affairs is now becoming more strategic, more standalone. And at the end of the day, the value that medical affairs brings can now be amplified with digital. So the insights, for example, that you mentioned that medical affairs brings, we are what I consider on the chessboard. I don't want to say the pawns, but we're the ones that are the boots on the ground. We're the folks who are in front of the healthcare providers. We're directly in front of the market access decision makers, the population health decision makers. And so the insights that medical affairs brings in, I think using digital now really helps to narrow those insights and be more focused. It allows us to really uncover things that the human eye might miss, right? And really highlight either outliers that we need to consider or to bring trends in for informing insights. And the insights, of course, is what helps inform the overall business strategy, right? It helps to inform commercial strategy as well as R&Ds, clinical trials. Like I said, now you can really take patient information and understand patient sentiment when you're developing protocols to make sure that you're actually patient first, which is what we want to be in pharma. So I do think that digital helps in that way when it comes to insights. I also think what has been new or newer, two things. One is that it allows us to be more measurable. So commercial, you can measure scripts, you can measure impact more objectively. Even when it comes to R&D, it can be measured a little bit more objectively. Now in medical affairs, I think we can really see the impact of what we're doing. So for example, if we have an educational program, then digital can now allow us to see our reach and to see how many people did we educate? Was there actually any change in their behavior or their intent, which is also informative when it comes to understanding whether or not people intend to make changes in their behavior as HCPs or even as patients. So I think that it allows us to metricize a little bit more, to be a little bit more measurable. And then lastly, it really gives us the opportunity for reach, which is my favorite area. One of the key pillars that I'm working on is digital opinion leaders. So that's working with physicians who have access to social media. Social media is huge right now. Digital tools are almost ubiquitous, right? Almost everyone has a smartphone of some sort across race and ethnicity. And so it's a great way to really help educate, help change behaviors. And it gives us the opportunity to connect with one for many, right? So if we connect with one digital opinion leader and they have 2 or 3 million followers, it gives us a larger share of voice, right? We can actually share clinical messages, put new research data findings out there in ways that go beyond just your traditional publications. And you can use that same approach to amplify traditional publications. So I think it really gives medical affairs a standalone presence when it comes to becoming that third pillar. We are now being able to bring value in ways that we have not been able to do before.
So true. You also brought up very interesting point on social listening. So just activating multiple signals across social, whether it's a digital opinion leader, DOL, the HCPs, and how their sentiment, the network, the behavior, the competitive intelligence we can get from whether it's X, Reddit, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatnot. Very exciting. Tanisha, thank you so much for sharing your insight and experience and perspective to us today. Your journey and work you've been doing at this intersection, I would say, of digital strategy, innovations, equitable health are truly inspiring. So
Why,
thank you.
thank you.
And for our audience here, thank you for tuning in. And if you have enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, share with your network, join for future conversation as we continue to explore how digital data, AI, and innovations are shaping the future of pharma. So thank you. And until next time, I'm Sanjeev Welling, CEO of Avira Digital. Looking forward for more episode and more listeners.
Thank you.
Nisha, thank you.